Leadership isn't just about taking charge, it's about understanding. It's about learning, listening, and using knowledge to uplift others. In today's fast-paced world, true leaders are the ones who stay curious, stay informed, and use what they know to create real impact. Let's talk about why growing your knowledge is the most powerful way to lead with purpose and to serve with heart. Let's get one thing straight. Learning doesn't stop when you walk out of a classroom. It doesn't end after you get your diploma or when you land your first job. In fact, that's when real learning actually begins. Life is the most honest, raw, and unpredictable teacher you will ever have. And if you allow yourself to learn every day, from your experiences, your failures, your relationships, your travels, and even your silence, you start living a far more meaningful, empowered life. Growing up in a family that deeply valued education, I was always encouraged to ask questions, to explore, to be curious, but I quickly realized that school could only teach me so much. The world outside taught me the rest. I learned empathy when I moved to different countries as a teenager. I learned confidence not in textbooks, but in auditions where rejection was more common than applause. I learned resilience from every sleepless night on set, and I learned leadership when I started producing films, managing teams, and making tough decisions. Here's what I believe: the moment you stop learning is the moment you stop evolving. And in this fast-paced world, where technology, culture, and society are constantly shifting, you can't afford to stay stagnant. You've got to stay curious, stay hungry, and most importantly, stay humble. Because real learners know that no matter how much they know, there's always more to discover. You don't need a classroom to grow. Your phone can be a library, a conversation can be a lecture, a failure can be a masterclass. And if you're paying attention, every person you meet becomes your teacher. Some will teach you what to do, and others will teach you what not to do. And both lessons are equally valuable. We often put pressure on ourselves to figure it all out in our 20s. But let me tell you from experience, life doesn't work like that. You keep figuring it out, you keep learning, whether it's understanding your purpose, navigating relationships, or even learning how to love yourself. It's all part of the syllabus of life. The most successful people I know are not the ones who graduated top of their class. They're the ones who never stopped being students. They listen more than they speak. They read, they ask, they reflect. They adapt, and because of that, they lead, not just with knowledge, but with wisdom. So don't limit your idea of education. Expand it, embrace it, make it a daily ritual. Learn from the world, learn from people, learn from yourself. Because when you treat learning as a lifelong journey, you don't just grow, you thrive, and that, to me, is the most beautiful kind of success. If there's one thing I've learned in my life and career, it's this: you are your own greatest investment. In self-education, learning that you choose, that you pursue on your own terms, is one of the most powerful tools you have, because let's face it, no one is going to hand you your destiny. You have to build it. You have to shape it, and self-education gives you the skills, the mindset, and the courage to do exactly that. I've always believed that who you become has less to do with where you started, and everything to do with how willing you are to keep growing. I didn't know how to act when I started in the film industry. I learned. I didn't know how to run a production company. I learned. I didn't know how to navigate global platforms or shift between cultures or speak out for causes that mattered. I educated myself. Day by day, moment by moment, step by step. That's the beauty of self-education. It puts the power back in your hands. You don't have to wait for permission. You don't need someone else to tell you what you're capable of. You decide. You decide what you want to learn, what direction you want to go in, and how deep you want to go. Whether it's business, health, emotional intelligence, coding, politics, parenting, or even mindfulness, there are endless resources available today. Books, podcasts, masterclasses, TED Talks, documentaries, even just real, honest conversations. And here's what's even more powerful. When you start learning by choice, you start living by design, not by default. You start moving with intention. You stop waiting for luck or circumstance to open doors for you, and instead you build your own doors, and then walk right through them. We often think success is about talent or opportunity. But honestly, it's about preparation, and self-education is preparation in motion. It's what sharpens your instincts, strengthens your confidence, and deepens your purpose. It allows you to walk into any room and know that you belong there, not because someone told you, but because you put in the work to earn it. Let me tell you something, the world is changing fast. And the people who thrive are not just the ones with the best degrees or the fanciest resumes. They're the ones who never stop learning, who take responsibility for their growth, who know that if they want to change their life, they have to start by changing what they know. So if you're feeling stuck, uncertain, or underestimated, start learning. Learn something new today. Take a small step, and then another, and watch how things start to shift. Because when you commit to educating yourself, you start to see the world differently. And more importantly, you start to see yourself differently. And that's when the magic happens. That's when you realize that your destiny isn't written for you. It's written by you. You know, one of the biggest myths out there is that confidence is something you're either born with or not. But let me tell you, confidence isn't magic, it's knowledge. When you know what you're doing, when you understand your space, your subject, yourself, that's when real, unshakable confidence shows up. When I first stepped into the entertainment world, I wasn't the most experienced actor. I wasn't the most polished or the most prepared. But what I did have was an obsession with learning. I watched, I asked questions, I studied people on set, I read scripts like textbooks, and slowly, as the knowledge grew, so did my confidence. It didn't come from being perfect. It came from being prepared. Knowledge gives you clarity, and in a world that throws 1,000 opinions at you every day, clarity is everything. When you know who you are and what you're talking about, you're no longer swayed by every trend or critique. You can walk into a room and not second guess yourself. You can make decisions, not out of fear or pressure, but with purpose. Whether it's choosing a role, launching a business, or speaking out about something that matters, clarity makes your voice stronger. It makes your direction sharper, and then comes courage, because when you know better, you act braver. Knowledge pushes you to take risks, to challenge norms, to stand up, not just for yourself, but for others too. When you're informed, you can't be intimidated. When you've done your homework, you're not scared to raise your hand, or your voice, or your standards. This is especially important for women, for anyone who's ever been underestimated. I can't tell you how many times I've been in rooms where I wasn't expected to lead, to speak, or to make the final call, but I did. Not by shouting the loudest, but by knowing my stuff. Whether I was producing a film, discussing contracts, or advocating for girls' education with UNICEF, I earned my space with substance, not noise, and you can too. You don't need to have all the answers, but you need to be hungry for them. Read, research, listen, surround yourself with people who challenge you to grow. Be curious not just about your work, but about the world and about yourself, because self-knowledge is where it all starts. Know your strengths, know your gaps, know your values. Confidence isn't about pretending. Clarity isn't about being rigid, and courage doesn't mean you're never scared. What ties them all together is knowledge, the kind you gain day by day through effort, through openness, and through choice. So if you're feeling uncertain, don't fake it. Learn, equip yourself, empower yourself, because once you know, you start to believe, and once you believe, you become unstoppable. One of the greatest lessons I've learned over the years is this. Every single day offers an opportunity to grow, if you're willing to receive it. And that growth doesn't always come from formal education or scheduled classes. Sometimes it comes from a book you randomly pick up. Sometimes it's in a documentary you weren't even planning to watch. Other times, it's in a conversation with a stranger, or even a podcast you listen to during your commute. Read, watch, listen. These three simple habits have the power to shift your perspective and completely transform the way you see the world and yourself. Growing up, books were my first window into different lives, different realities. They taught me empathy, imagination, history, and resilience. Reading still plays a huge role in how I understand people and cultures. And now, in a digital age, we have access to so much more. Films, podcasts, interviews, speeches, masterclasses. Learning is literally at our fingertips, and the more you engage with the world through these channels, the more layered and insightful your thinking becomes. There's this idea that only certain sources count as educational, but I disagree. Every source can teach you something if you're paying attention. A movie can teach you about storytelling and human behavior. A YouTube video can teach you a new skill. A song can teach you about emotion and artistry. Even social media, when used mindfully, can expose you to ideas, cultures, and causes you might never have encountered otherwise. Listening, especially, is underrated. We often hear to respond, but we don't always listen to understand. And when you truly listen, whether it's to your friends, mentors, colleagues, or people from completely different walks of life, you open yourself up to growth. You learn things school could never teach you: how to navigate human emotion, how to lead with empathy, how to manage your energy, how to stay grounded. The most inspiring people I know are not those who claim to know it all. They are the ones who are still learning, still curious, still watching, still reading, still listening. They are absorbing knowledge not just to be smart, but to be better leaders, better creators, better citizens, better humans. So don't ever underestimate a moment of learning just because it didn't come from a textbook. The world is your classroom, and every experience is a lesson waiting to be received. You don't need to spend hours in silence with a pile of books to grow. Read a page, watch a 10-minute interview, listen to someone's story, and do it daily. Make it part of your lifestyle, not a task on your to-do list. Because when you read widely, watch deeply, and listen openly, you don't just learn facts. You learn wisdom, and that kind of learning, it changes everything. If I had to name one quality that has guided me through every phase of my life, from growing up across continents to stepping onto film sets, from producing movies to working with global organizations, it would be curiosity. That constant need to understand more, to dig deeper, to ask why. And I truly believe this. Curiosity is your greatest teacher, because when you're curious, you never stop growing. As children, we're all naturally curious. We ask a million questions about everything. Why is the sky blue? Why do people cry? Why can't we fly? But somewhere along the way, society starts rewarding answers more than questions. We're taught to memorize, to conform, to follow. And slowly, that beautiful spark of curiosity can fade. But if you want to thrive, not just survive, in this ever-changing world, you've got to protect your curiosity like it's sacred, because it is. It's what keeps your mind alive. It's what leads you to new ideas, new people, and new paths. It's what helps you break boundaries and rewrite your story. I've seen it firsthand in my own journey. I never studied acting formally, but I was endlessly curious. I wanted to know how performances worked, how directors thought, how scripts transformed into scenes. I asked questions on set. I watched everything. I was obsessed with learning, not because someone told me to, but because I wanted to. And that curiosity became my best teacher. It still is. Curiosity leads to creativity. It makes you challenge the norm, connect the dots differently, and see opportunities where others see obstacles. When you're curious, you're open. And when you're open, the universe responds with knowledge, with experiences, with growth. Asking why is powerful. It's not a sign of doubt. It's a sign of depth. Why do I want this? Why am I afraid of that? Why do things work this way? And can they be better? These are the kinds of questions that change your thinking, your choices, and your direction. Curiosity also builds resilience. When life gets tough, and it will, curiosity helps you find solutions instead of sitting in despair. It turns setbacks into lessons and confusion into discovery. It keeps you moving, because someone who is curious doesn't just stop at failure. They ask, what can I learn from this? So here's my message to you. Never stop asking why. Don't silence your questions because you're afraid of seeming naive or uncertain. The smartest people in the world are the ones who never stop questioning. They read between the lines. They dig beneath the surface. They stay curious about people, about the world, and about themselves. Your curiosity is your inner compass. Follow it, nurture it. Let it lead you to new knowledge, new growth, and a version of yourself you never imagined. Because the moment you stop being curious, you stop being fully alive, and you, my friend, are meant to live fully. Let's be honest. You can't grow in a bubble. You can't thrive in your little corner of comfort, pretending the world isn't changing around you. Growth isn't just about learning new skills or chasing personal goals. It's about being aware, deeply aware, of the world you live in, the people around you, and the times you're living through. Because true growth demands one thing above all else: awareness. We're living in a time where the world is evolving faster than ever. Technology, culture, climate, politics, social movements. Everything is shifting. And if you want to grow, if you want to stay relevant and impactful, you have to stay informed. You have to know what's happening, not just in your industry or in your city, but globally. I've seen firsthand how powerful awareness can be. Whether it was through my work with UNICEF, or through my involvement in global entertainment, or even just speaking up about social justice issues, I realized that being informed is a responsibility. You can't speak up if you don't know what's going on. You can't make change if you're disconnected from reality. And no, I'm not saying you have to read the news 24/7 or become a political analyst overnight. But take a moment each day to check in with the world. Read a few headlines, watch a documentary, listen to someone's story. Be open to perspectives that are different from yours. The more you know, the more you grow. Staying updated isn't just about facts. It's about empathy. When you're aware, you become more compassionate. You understand why people fight for certain causes. You learn to stand in someone else's shoes. And that awareness, that's what makes you a better leader, a better creator. Let me tell you something I've learned through experience. Transformation doesn't happen in giant leaps. It happens in the small, intentional moments you invest in yourself every single day. It's not about waiting for the perfect opportunity or that one big break. It's about what you do with your ordinary days that eventually creates something truly extraordinary. And that's where daily learning becomes your superpower. You don't need to wake up and change the world by lunchtime. You don't need to have a 10-step plan figured out. What you do need is the mindset to learn, consistently, openly, and with curiosity. Whether it's 10 pages of a book, a 15-minute podcast, a thoughtful article, or even just reflecting on your experiences, every act of learning adds up. Think about it. The same way working out regularly transforms your body, learning something new every day transforms your mind. It sharpens your thinking, expands your vision, and fuels your growth, and over time it shapes who you become. I didn't become who I am today in a day, or a week, or even a year. It was the daily commitment to evolving, to learning something, about the world, about my craft, about myself, that brought about real transformation. Whether I was on a movie set, on a flight, or in between meetings, I made space to absorb something new. That's the key. You make space. You don't wait for it to magically appear. Daily learning also builds momentum. You start to feel more confident, more in control, more connected to your purpose. Suddenly, you're no longer going through the motions. Your days become intentional, empowered, purposeful, and that's what turns an ordinary Tuesday into a stepping stone for something extraordinary. Let's be real. Life can get monotonous. Wake up, work, repeat. But when you approach each day with the intention to learn, you breathe life into your routine. You find meaning in the mundane. You start to notice the wisdom in small things, in conversations, challenges, mistakes, even silence. And when you collect these lessons daily, you're building a library of power within yourself that no one can take away. Here's the best part. You get to choose what you learn. It doesn't have to be complicated or academic. Learn how to better manage your emotions. Learn a new recipe. Learn about a cause that matters. Learn a phrase in another language. It's not about quantity. It's about consistency, because transformation doesn't come from what you know. It comes from how often you choose to grow. So don't underestimate the power of today. This day, this moment is your opportunity to take one small step. And tomorrow, take another. And one day, you'll look back and realize you've changed, you've grown. You've become more than you ever imagined, all because you chose to learn just a little every day. I believe leadership isn't about being the loudest person in the room or having all the answers. It's about having the knowledge, the empathy, and the vision to bring out the best in people. And that only comes when you commit to constantly learning, because the more you know, the more powerfully you can lead. And the more you understand, the more deeply you can serve. When I first started navigating international spaces, whether it was in film, fashion, or humanitarian work, I quickly realized that titles don't make leaders. Information does, awareness does, knowing your subject, knowing your team, knowing the world. That's where your strength comes from. It gives you presence, it earns you respect, it allows you to speak with clarity and act with confidence. And the most impactful leaders I've ever met, whether it was on set, in boardrooms, or in refugee camps, were also the most well-informed. They didn't stop learning just because they reached the top. They kept pushing themselves to know more, to understand more. Because when you know more, you lead better, not just from authority, but from authenticity. But knowledge doesn't only make you a better leader, it also makes you more useful to your community, to your cause, to the people who look to you for support. That's the part about serving. You can't truly uplift someone if you don't understand their needs. You can't advocate for change unless you understand the system. You can't solve a problem if you haven't taken the time to study it. When I began working with UNICEF, I didn't want to just show up and smile for the cameras. I wanted to truly understand the issues, whether it was child marriage, access to education, or menstrual hygiene. I had to learn about policies, cultural nuances, and the real lives behind the statistics. That knowledge helped me serve more deeply and speak more truthfully. It wasn't about me. It was about the people I was trying to represent. And that's what real service is. It's not charity. It's responsibility. It's saying, I want to use what I know, what I've learned, what I've seen, to make things better. But you can't give what you don't have. That's why learning is not optional. It's essential. So wherever you are right now, whether you're leading a business, raising a family, building your brand, or finding your voice invest in your knowledge. Read, listen, ask questions, stay open, keep evolving, because when you do, your leadership becomes deeper, your words carry more weight, your decisions impact more people, and your service becomes real, rooted in purpose, not performance. Remember, you don't have to be the smartest in the room, but if you're willing to keep learning, you just might become the most impactful, and that's where your true power lies.